With tariff talks top of mind, South Florida farmers say they're in trouble. Crops are rotting on the vine, and they're blaming the ongoing trade wars and immigration changes.
Have you noticed lately vegetable bundles are smaller, potato bags are lighter, yet the grocery bill feels heavier? Millions of Americans no longer shop based on preference but on survival. And behind those gradually emptying shelves lies a truth no one wants to admit: American agriculture is on the brink of collapse. 4 strategic farms that feed millions are struggling to stay afloat against inflation, extreme weather, and trade policies. Many hoped the G7 summit would offer a way out, but the image of the US president leaving the meeting early to maintain a firm stance left farmers more disheartened than ever. So what happens if all 4 farms go bankrupt? Watch the video now to see how this could directly impact your family's dinner table. That the information presented is based on aggregated statistical data with no intention of discrediting any organization or individual. Number 1. Taylor Farms. Have you ever heard the name Taylor Farms? Maybe not. But if you've stepped into any major US supermarket, Walmart, Kroger, Whole Foods, or Target, you've probably picked up a bag of salad bearing that name without noticing. Taylor Farms is a familiar yet invisible presence like electricity or water, always there, never thought about until summer 2025, when greens began disappearing from shelves and suddenly people noticed. The once rock-solid fresh produce supply chain is fracturing day by day. Taylor Farms is one of America's largest processors of fresh vegetables, supplying millions of pounds of salad greens, cabbage, kale, celery, carrots, and spinach annually to retail chains, restaurants, schools, and hospitals. But by mid-2025, the company had to cut output by nearly 30% at its Salinas and Yuma facilities due to soaring input costs, chronic labor shortages, and extreme weather-disrupting harvests. In internal reports leaked to food industry analysts, Taylor Farms admitted it's facing an unprecedented crisis since its founding. In Walmart stores around major cities like Chicago, Dallas, and Pittsburgh, customers in June saw produce aisles stripped bare, especially pre-cut vegetables once popular among seniors and single people. Bundle greens like romaine and kale are up over 20% since early in the year, and quality has dropped as shipments come from Mexico or Canada with longer transit times. If you live on a fixed income like many retirees or hourly wage workers, you're spending an extra $10 or $50 weekly on fresh produce, $600, $800 a year. Behind these numbers lies a collapsing ecosystem. Salinas was once a symbol of modern agriculture. High-tech greenhouses, water-saving drip systems, automated packing lines, everything ran like clockwork. But early this year, legal immigrant laborers on H-2A visas declined sharply after widespread document checks and tightened seasonal visa rules. Farmers were thrown into fear, some even fled or burned their fields.
We went to the fields the other day and we actually helped the farmers get out of the area and help them get to a safe place and make sure ICE wasn't behind them.
Trump decided he wasn't going to give us our farm check. That's fine. We're just going to burn the fucking crops. Let everybody starve.
And the loss isn't just unharvested produce. According to the International Fresh Produce Association, IFPA Taylor Farms' reduced output has left the domestic market short about 230,000 tons of vegetables in the first half of 2025. The impact has rippled through distribution schools reducing greens in lunches, hospitals switching to frozen vegetables instead of fresh. In low-income communities, this becomes a hard reality. People eat less or no fresh produce. In Fresno Medical Center, hospitalizations for chronic fatigue and digestive disorders among seniors rose 18% year over year. Doctors there say most patients have poor diets, especially lacking in fiber and vitamins A and C nutrients fresh produce provides daily. As produce costs rise and supplies waver, consumers turn to processed foods cheaper, more convenient, but full of salt and sugar. A 3-week diet low in vegetables can significantly weaken immunity, especially in the elderly or those with diabetes or heart conditions groups that make up nearly 40% of the adult U.S. population. Taylor Farms once represented America's modern solution for clean, safe, convenient produce. But ironically, that very optimized model is now its weakness. Fertilizer prices surged 45% after new U.S. tariffs on imports from China. Fuel costs rose sharply amid global supply chain disruptions. Meanwhile, supermarkets kept pressure on retail prices, eroding manufacturers' margins penny by penny. When margins vanished, Taylor Farms had no choice but to shutter some lines, letting the market self-regulate by scarcity. The impact extends beyond food. data from the San Francisco Federal Reserve show Taylor Farms cutbacks cost over 100 jobs in Salinas alone. At least 40 supporting businesses, logistics, transportation, packing, retail reported revenue drops over 20%. The supply chain break not only hits producers, but also shakes entire communities dependent on them. A town losing its flagship farm is like a city losing its factory. Fewer jobs, less spending, shaken confidence. In Q2 2025 alone, direct losses from Taylor Farms' scaled-down production are estimated over $380 million, including revenues from unharvested crops, canceled logistics, contracts, and lower long-term orders from major distributors. When a key player like Taylor Farms buckles, the effect spreads far beyond Salinas, reaching every dinner plate in America. Worse, it puts U.S. produce at a competitive disadvantage with former partner countries. American farmers hope the summer 2025 G7 summit would yield breakthroughs on agricultural trade, especially revisiting fertilizer tariffs and flexible labor visas. But the summit brought no concrete support for internal food crisis nations. Promised initiatives, fertilizer tax cuts, or visa reform remain on paper. Meanwhile, Canadian farmers directly subsidized for energy and encouraged to ramp up summer produce are filling the void left by U.S. agriculture. Ironically, Americans may soon be eating produce grown in Canada, a reversal never seen before. Salinas once fed the North. Now Ontario may fill the gap. And the question becomes not where the produce comes from, but how long can we trust our self-sufficiency? Number 2. Mid-Kansas Cooperative. In the United States, white bread used to be the cheapest item on store shelves. Yet in June 2025, it costs as much as a portion of salad at a 5-star restaurant. At a supermarket in Topeka, a basic loaf of sandwich bread rose from $2.50 to nearly $4 in just 3 months. But less than 100 miles away, sacks of wheat are being hauled straight from the fields and burned. No one is buying, there's nowhere to store, and selling would mean greater losses than keeping. The land once called America's wheat belt now holds fields waiting for harvest. Not because they are ripe, but because no one has a reason to reap anymore. Mid-Kansas Cooperative, with thousands of members and a storage network of over 40 million bushels of grain annually, has just announced a nearly 40% reduction in cultivated land. The wheat still grows, but the growers are letting go. Since the start of 2025, wheat prices have plummeted to the lowest point in 6 years. Meanwhile, input costs keep climbing. Fertilizers up nearly 25%, fuel, and crop insurance up over 18%, according to USDA data. At a price of $5.30 per bushel, many farmers have recalculated and realized every bushel sold is another dollar lost. This erosion isn't just on paper, it's visible in action. Some farmers leave their fields to bake in the sun, others switch to raising livestock, a less risky venture because it's sold at market price. Machinery sits idle in barns. Fuel stations are empty. On agricultural forums, the most common question is no longer what to plant this year, but should I keep farming at all? One person wrote that he had started learning to drive trucks, a profession in high demand in the Wichita area. Not because he wants to change careers, but because there's no other way to survive. The situation is spreading across central states from Nebraska, Oklahoma to eastern Colorado. An entire agricultural region, once symbolic of America's self-sufficiency, is now vulnerable to two forces farmers can't control: weather and tariffs. A late rainy season can cut yields by 20%. A single tweet from a powerful man can lead to export orders being canceled. Meanwhile, Canada and Australia, America's competitors in the wheat market, are benefiting from new trade agreements helping them penetrate deeper into Asian and Middle Eastern markets that used to be America's strongholds. American agricultural products are thus being pushed back, not because of poor quality, but due to lost competitive advantage. Wheat can't be sold abroad, remains in storage, or is undercut by domestic processors. There are reports from the Midwestern Grain Association that some batches are even sold below production cost, just to cut losses. The most asked question isn't in the fields, but in family discussions: should the children continue farming? More and more young people in Kansas, once called the heart of American agriculture, are leaving the farm to learn other trades. They don't want to inherit a job that wore their parents out, yet still left them financially unstable. Logistics supporting industries and automobile manufacturing are growing fast in cities like Wichita and Kansas City, offering stable salaries and less dependence on rainwind or global markets. Agriculture no longer appeals to the new generation, not just because of low income, but because the risk is too great and the reward too small. Meanwhile, the cost of wheat-based products continues to rise. Bread, pasta, cereal, once symbols of a simple American meal, have become items to reconsider. A pack of pasta rose from $1.50 to $2.30. Breakfast cereal jumped nearly 20% in just the first half of 2025. You'll feel this most clearly if you live in a city, even if agriculture isn't something you usually care about. Some areas of Chicago and Minneapolis have seen local flour shortages as mills cut production, while supermarket chains look for alternative sources from Canada. Consumers ask, why are farmers losing money while prices still go up? The answer lies in the imbalance of the supply chain. Farmers sell cheap, but middle costs rise due to fuel, labor, and trade volatility. Processing plants struggle to stay open with unstable supply. They too have to recalculate importing raw materials from Saskatchewan, even though it's farther, but with stable contracts, lower prices, and less policy risk. And from there, a new cycle begins. Canadian wheat mixed into flour for American bread, not because it's better quality, but because economic calculations demand it. This is no longer hypothetical. According to data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture in June, wheat imports from Canada rose by more than 37% compared to the same period last year, a record increase. Notably, most of the imports are being distributed to mills in the southern Great Lakes region, which once relied entirely on domestic supplies. Experts warn that if this trend continues within 2 years, the U.S. could become dependent on foreign sources even for its most basic product. For farmers, that means losing their final standing. When they no longer plant because there's no longer a reason to plant, the U.S. doesn't just lose wheat, it loses a generation of wheat growers. And when you pick up a loaf of bread that tastes slightly different, it might not be due to a new recipe, but because the grain was grown elsewhere under a different policy and by different hands. Number 3. Mountaire Farms. In the summer of 2025, at a food fair in Arkansas, the annual fried chicken cooking contest was canceled due to a lack of domestic ingredients. The chefs turned instead to showcasing their skills with frozen fish ground meat, even industrial plant-based dishes. The organizers quietly took down the banner that once read, "Proud of our local produce." They didn't want to turn the competition into a celebration of imported chicken. From family dinners, school lunch trays, and fast food combos to Thanksgiving meals, chicken used to be a familiar, accessible, and reasonably priced staple, a part of modern American life. But over the past 6 months, the quiet disappearance of this meat has revealed a deeper crisis when even chicken legs are no longer within reach. Perhaps the country has lost more than just a meal. Mountaire Farms, one of the largest poultry producers in the United States, is at the center of this upheaval. With farming and processing operations in Delaware, Maryland, and North Carolina, Mountaire once supplied hundreds of millions of pounds of chicken annually to supermarket chains, restaurants, and major fast food brands. But from late 2024 through the first half of 2025, the company suffered a string of unforeseen blows. An outbreak of H5N2 avian flu surged in the winter, spreading rapidly through farms in the east, forcing the culling of millions of birds. Disinfection containment and restocking took months, and by June output had still not recovered beyond 60% of the previous year's level. On top of the epidemic, surging feed costs made maintaining flocks even harder. Corn and soybeans, the two main components of poultry feed, increased in price by more than 29% year over year due to severe droughts in Brazil and reduced domestic yields. Some farms were forced to shrink their flocks. Others delayed new batches due to unaffordable input costs. In a fast-cycling industry like poultry, just a few weeks from hatch to slaughter, even small disruptions can fracture the entire supply chain. As many farms paused operations, processing lines also began to face raw material shortages. Mountaire continued trying to keep its major plants running, but processing capacity fell sharply. Meanwhile, smaller facilities unable to meet the new biosecurity regulations had to shut down. In an industry that once ran like a synchronized machine, from hatcheries to dinner plates, one seized cog was enough to impact the whole value chain. The shortage forced fast food chains to adapt. Popeyes, Chick-fil-A, Wendy's, even McDonald's began to gradually reduce chicken offerings on dinner menus or significantly raise prices. Some restaurants stopped serving chicken legs, pivoting to beef burgers, plant-based options, or frozen ground meat. Companies scrambled to import processed chicken from Brazil, Thailand, and Mexico to stay afloat, a necessary solution, but one fraught with risks. In May, a shipment of imported frozen chicken in Illinois was found contaminated with salmonella, sparking social media alarm. In Texas, customers reported strange odors and unusual flavors in some products. Several chains had to publicly announce a temporary change in supply sources, asking patrons to please understand the unavoidable disruption. But what no one said aloud was that most chicken in this summer's fast food wasn't coming from American farms. Trust began to fracture. Data from Consumer Reports in June 2025 showed that 57% of Americans no longer fully trust the quality of chicken served in restaurants. The figure was notably higher among those over 55, once a generation deeply loyal to Made in America products. The shift didn't stem from a media scandal or major crisis, but from a quiet realization meals no longer felt the same. In many households, the usual roast chicken leg for dinner was replaced by spaghetti frozen fish or plant-based burgers. Not because preferences had changed, but because cost and confidence left no choice. In supermarkets, the price of fresh chicken rose from $3.50 to over $5 per pound. In fast food outlets, a basic chicken combo now exceeded $10 a threshold, forcing many middle-income families to reconsider their dining habits. The once simple working-class meal had become a subject of budget planning. For children, chicken was once a go-to food, easy to eat, familiar, and safe, often served in school lunches. But this year, many school districts announced reduced chicken portions due to unstable supply. Some substituted sausage, ground meat, or vegetarian dishes. In Pennsylvania, an education bulletin mentioned a menu adjustment due to market conditions. A soft phrase masking a hard truth: even the school nutrition system is running short on chicken. Even Easter and Thanksgiving, the peak times for turkey consumption, are being impacted. Mountaire used to be a major supplier for eastern states during the holidays, but now many retailers are announcing they'll serve frozen turkey imported from Canada and Brazil due to insufficient domestic supply. For families who see these holidays as sacred traditions, replacing the classic American roast bird with an import is a hard pill to swallow. Yet with no other option, many are forced to just eat and move on. Losing the chicken leg on the dinner table isn't just a change in portion size, it's a quiet collapse of trust habits and autonomy. A food once simple, common, and cheap has become unstable, expensive, and prompts an uneasy question. Where did this chicken come from? Why can't we, as one of the world's top agricultural nations, preserve a basic meal for our own people? Experts from the National Food Policy Institute warn if the poultry supply chain isn't properly rebuilt, the U.S. could lose over 15% of its chicken market share to international suppliers within just 1 year. That wouldn't only spell a loss of control over the domestic food industry, but would shake the cultural foundations built on working-class meals. Family dinners, and school nutrition things that can't be measured in dollars. Americans once took pride in being able to feed themselves from their own soil and farms. But from vegetables to wheat, from bread to chicken, each familiar dish is gradually being replaced. And when meals become something imported, fast, cheap, but foreign, the sense of loss doesn't lie in the taste, but in something deeper: trust. But perhaps this isn't the end. Let us now turn to the final name in today's list. Number 4. Lamb Weston. Can you call a burger without fries a complete meal? For many Americans, the answer is no, and yet that's happening more and more. In recent weeks, McDonald's locations in Ohio, Wendy's in Utah, and Burger King outlets across the Northwest have all posted signs temporarily not serving fries due to ingredient shortages. But few realize the root cause lies not in the kitchen, but in the parched fields of Idaho, the birthplace of the potatoes once adored around the world. Lamb Weston, one of the largest frozen potato producers in the U.S., headquartered in Idaho, used to process over 15 million pounds of potatoes per week at just its main plant in Idaho Falls. Their products were present in nearly every major fast food chain, from McDonald's and Wendy's to KFC and Popeyes. But since the beginning of 2025, output has dropped sharply. The primary reason isn't machines or labor, but nature, followed by the market. Idaho is enduring one of its worst droughts since 1992. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA average rainfall in the state fell by 38% in just the first 6 months of the year, cracking thousands of acres of potato fields. For potatoes, water isn't just a growth condition, it determines yield quality and harvestability. Many farmers have had to abandon crops mid-season, letting them wither due to the inability to sustain irrigation systems that consume both electricity and fuel. But drought is only part of the picture. Fertilizer prices, especially for imported potash, have doubled compared to last year, while cold transport costs essential for potatoes have risen by up to 19% due to diesel prices and a prolonged driver shortage. When production costs outpace sale revenue, many small farms can no longer afford to reinvest in the next season. They either sell their land or halt production, triggering a chain reaction. Processing plants lack raw materials. Orders are delayed and retail chains can't meet consumer demand. unable to fully rely on domestic supply, Lamb Weston has had to import part of its materials from Canada, the Netherlands, and China. However, imported potatoes vary widely in quality, higher moisture, lower crispiness, inconsistent color, and flavor. Once fried, many batches fail to retain the iconic golden crunch, go limp quickly, and are hard to preserve. Several fast food chains have quietly reduced portion sizes or altered their menus from fries to fried corn, breadsticks, or packaged salads. While temporary, these changes have left consumers uneasy what is happening to the meal we once took for granted. According to a June 2025 Gallup report, 81% of Americans consider fries an essential part of the fast food combo. For the middle-aged and elderly, this food is tied to childhood, to memories of cross-country drives, to old-school lunches and late-night dinners after work. For low-income individuals or those living alone, fries are more than a habit. They're a solution easy to cook, convenient, and nutritionally sufficient. But now a bag of frozen fries costs over 35% more than last year. Some supermarkets in Montana, North Dakota, and Wyoming have even imposed limits no more than 2 bags per customer, something not seen since the COVID pandemic. The damage isn't just emotional or behavioral. Economically, according to Lamb Weston's own data, Q2 2025 revenue dropped 18% year over year, largely due to soaring production costs, declining exports, and suspended supply contracts. The U.S. is the world's largest exporter of frozen potatoes, accounting for nearly 40% of the global market, of which Lamb Weston is one of the top 3 suppliers. The decline in output has pushed clients in Japan, South Korea, and many Asian countries to turn to the Netherlands or China. Experts warn if this persists, the loss won't just be in market share, but in the reputation of American fries, once a global benchmark. Domestically, the impact has rippled through the entire system. Fast food chains not only face ingredient shortages, but must shoulder rising costs and handle customer complaints. Simply put, for many people, a burger without fries is like coffee without sugar, still consumable but lacking satisfaction. More dangerously, this scarcity sets a precedent. If potatoes, a common crop, easy to grow and store, can become hard to find, what food can we really rely on? From the fry crisis, a quiet shift in taste is underway. Younger generations are starting to accept meals without fries, some not even noticing the difference, while older generations feel the loss. A few culinary experts call it a cultural fracture in the fast food combo, where a dish once shared across generations now marks a divide, and if left unaddressed, this seemingly minor shift could reshape how we perceive food eating habits and the invisible bond between people and the land they live on. This summer, the serving of fries on American tables is no longer ubiquitous. Some remain but cost more, come in smaller portions, and no one's quite sure where they're from. A humble dish, once the heart of the fast food combo, is being gradually replaced by temporary alternatives. But what's more worrying is that people are getting used to it. When even the simplest dishes start to vanish, consumers stop being surprised, and it's that very lack of surprise that should frighten us the most. The 4 pillars once thought unshakable in the U.S. food system are beginning to wobble. Not due to a sudden storm, but a long chain of instability, rising costs, broken supply chains, sluggish policy responses, and a strained agricultural sector. When even simple things like a dinner with greens, a loaf of bread, a fried chicken meal, or a few fries become scarce, what remains stable? Could this food crisis spread further? Share your thoughts below. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. The analysis in this video is based on current data and an independent perspective, and is not intended to make definitive predictions about the future. We hope this information helps the community reflect and take timely action.